Welcome to my TEDx talk. Today we're learning about divorces. Do you get it? Do you get it? Divorces can happen for numerous reasons, from financial disagreements to issues with communication. Whatever the cause may be, we have a tendency to focus on why separations happen, rather than the resulting impacts and effects they have on these new single-parent households. Today I want to teach you guys about the varying effects that happen post-divorce on single-father households and single-mother households, with the focus on not just the children's welfare, but the parents' well-being as well. The first point I want to touch on while analyzing the effects of divorce is the economic impacts it has on each resulting party. It's almost always the case that economically speaking, the single-father household will fare much better financially following a divorce because of the gender pay gap. I think it's also really important to note that divorces are especially hard on stay-at-home mothers because of their financial dependence on their husbands. Following the divorce, it's extremely hard for these women to find jobs because of their lack of experience and time spent in the workforce, which makes it that much harder for them to climb out of financial insecurity. Now that we know it's especially hard for stay-at-home mothers, what about the women that worked while they were married? Well, the family textbook on diversity, inequality, and social change does quite a good job at giving us a good example of what it looks like when two working parents divorce. I'll include the infographic next to me, which illustrates the following prompt. Imagine a typical married couple with two children. The husband is employed full-time and earns about $62,000 annually, while the wife earns about $45,000. That means that the total of $107,000 works out to $26,750 per person. If they divorce and each spouse keeps earning the same amount of money, and the children go to live with their mother, then the mother and the children will be in the household with $45,000 and three people, or $15,000 per person, while the father is on his own with $62,000. His per person income goes up, and hers and her children go down. Although this seems like a very specific scenario, this happens much more than we'd like to assume, which was why child support was invented and put in place. Quick stop in from video editor Zoe here. One question I'd like to ask you guys to sit with and ponder is if you guys know of any women, single mothers, that pay child support. Do you know of any? Because of a mother's tendency to live with their children following divorce, coupled with women's low income, child support is crucial for separated mothers trying to parent alone. However, this doesn't close the income gap that's created after separation, as women are twice as more likely to fall below the poverty line within a year after divorcing. Many argue that children are better off with their single fathers because of their socioeconomic advantages rather than their styles of parenting. Over time, the two groups become similar on all socio-demographic characteristics. This suggests that socioeconomic inequalities between single fathers and single mothers are the result of different ways that divorce affects women and men financially, or the result of pre-existing inequalities in family roles and access to occupational opportunities. Quickly branching off from that discussion, I want to briefly touch upon children's safety following an economic decline post-divorce. What many people fail to realize is that there is a direct correlation between household economic security and the need for Child Protective Services, or CPS. That's not to say impoverished people make bad parents, but rather poverty affects many aspects of people's life, including the probability of having a parental mental health disorder or mental health crisis, which increases the likelihood of Child Protective Services being called on you or brought into your household. This has in turn specifically increased the amount of single mothers battling clinical depression. Now I want to touch on the child's well-being following a divorce. Are they better off with their father or mother? Consistent evidence exists that shows there are negative long-term effects on relationships between fathers and adult children following a divorce. Although less recorded, there are also negative effects mothers impart on their children as well following a divorce. However, it's limited to more specific indicators like contact frequency. After several studies were done to see the long-term effects divorce has on children, along with comparing and contrasting those same single parents, the findings were that when it comes to support, it's common among children of divorced parents to receive little support exchange with their father. However, when it comes to conflict, contact, and quality, it's relatively equal among both parents. Lastly, I want to talk about the happiness following divorce, which was what I was most curious about while researching for this assignment. Although single mothers have been shown to be prone to developing clinical depression following divorce, statistically, both single fathers and single mothers are actually equally unhappy, or rather, equally less happy than that of their married counterparts. As we can see from the diagram below, single fathers and single mothers hit their lowest level of happiness within a year following their divorce. However, as we can see, they naturally started from a place of decline. So it's honestly like they hit rock bottom, and now there's nowhere else to go but up. On the other hand, the line in yellow, representing married couples, is higher in terms of happiness. We also notice there's a slow decline, so many believe divorced couples take the risk of being deeply unhappy for a year or so, rather than a slow fall from grace into misery that is an unhappy marriage. This assignment definitely hit close to home for me, coming from split parent households. As I was writing the script down on paper, it was like I was writing different aspects of my life down, or rather my mom's life, because I feel like although it seems a bit specific, a lot of this is very common to many divorcee stories. I remember facing deep economic insecurity in ways I honestly never have before following my parents' divorce, and I watched my mom struggle in ways I just simply never have before. I watched her struggle with clinical depression as well. It was really interesting to read that it is a commonality and that it's not just my story. This was the majority of many single mother stories. And I feel like I definitely had some bias coming into this assignment because I was naturally prepared to read that children were better off with their mothers, but that's simply not the case because the dads that don't immediately split following a divorce, that show up, that want to co-parent, that want to be part of their child's life, are what we should be analyzing single mothers with, rather than absent fathers who not only don't want to parent their child, but additionally don't financially provide for it. I feel like I've had a really rocky relationship following my parents' divorce with my late father. But this assignment definitely allowed me to see his point of view, which was really amazing. And I realized how good of a job he did given the circumstances when I see that the majority of his demographics simply pay child support or don't even do that.
Video editor Zoe back. I have one last question to ask you guys before I leave. After learning about divorce and its effects, how do you guys feel about it? Jumping off from that, if your guys' parents have been divorced, how has it impacted your relationships with them?
I hope you enjoyed learning about divorce with me and the effects and impacts it has on single parent households and their children.